we have your prompt: abortion free and legal all 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Legal
I'd love to
with
do that.
legal. Sorry, you don't want to?
I do.
Oh, you do. Okay. So abortion free and legal all 9 months. Legal without restriction. So does
Yeah.
this mean up until? Is there any point where?
Yeah, so I think it's important to define the term abortion, which would be deliberate termination of pregnancy.
Okay.
I think in some cases there can obviously be terminations of pregnancy that don't result in the death of the fetus. And I would opt for that post 24 weeks.
Oh, so it's a bait question. What a disingenuous bait question.
I don't think it's disingenuous.
So let me make sure that I steel man this
well,
properly. I just want to steel man
I
it.
guess it's your turn. Go ahead.
I just want to steel man.
Sure.
So it is the case that you're against all abortions after 24 weeks if they end the life of the child.
No. I think in the case, obviously, to preserve the life of the pregnant person as well as in severe fetal abnormality would be my exceptions.
Okay, so you have exceptions to it, but generally. So
Yes.
the vast majority of abortions would be immoral after 24 weeks.
Again, I don't think abortion just means lethal outcome. If we are talking about lethal outcome, I just don't see the practicality in it.
Yeah, I get it. So you're saying that after the 24-week mark, if you're going to have an abortion because you whatever arbitrary reason you come up with that and you want it to end up in the termination of the child and the child's inside you, you're not allowed to do that.
That would be murder. I would classify that
Yeah,
as
so
murder.
then that's
Yeah.
it's just a bait question. So you don't actually think that there should be so you're just making a semantic distinction. You're saying
I
this
think
works
it's
on
in-
TikTok all the time too, right?
I-
Just
well,
for you, the
can I
audience.
respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
I will give you some credence there that I do think that often that phrasing of free and legal 9 months can be
Yeah.
very baiting because of how people view the term abortion, which is why I've also included without restriction. And now on my prompts, I just do pro-abortion.
Yeah, right, because you do want restrictions.
No.
Yeah, right. But only because the semantic distinction is something other than what people associate with abortion.
Like Colorado doesn't have any legislation regarding abortion. And that's what I want. I don't want legislation regarding abortion.
None?
Colorado has none. So Canada doesn't have any. I believe Washington is another state.
So what happens in Colorado if you do terminate the pregnancy at 8 months?
Then it would just result in a live birth, either a hysterotomy abortion, which is similar to a cesarean, or an induction abortion.
6 months?
30 weeks, same thing. Again, it would depend specifically on the obviously, I had a friend when we were in our 20s, like I told you earlier, I live in Montana, and any kind of abortion past 24 weeks is illegal. So she had to travel to Colorado because her son had a severe fetal abnormality and he would not survive birth.
Yeah, I get that. But if there is no problems with the pregnancy, right, and there's no direct harm or threat to the mother's the mother's health, what happens if you want to terminate the pregnancy at 6 months?
Then it would just result in an induction or a cesarean.
But at 6 months, that could easily lead to the child's death.
It could, just like birth could.
So
premature birth could.
So wouldn't you want there to be legislation against that?
No.
Yeah, but the chances are significantly
Can
higher.
you tell me, because this is always kind of where I get really frustrated with people who are pro-life, is kind of explaining to me the landscape of someone who has waited 30 weeks and then wants an abortion, no longer to be pregnant for any reason.
Yeah. Okay, what's the question?
Can you explain the landscape? Because I feel like a lot of pro-lifers just kind of assume that there are people out there who are like 30 weeks, just wake up like, not feeling the
If it's not a
pregnancy
problem,
anymore, might as well just go get it taken care of.
If you don't think there's a problem there, then why would you be adverse to legislation? Just enforcing that you can't do X.
Because the legislation creates complications within a very complex medical condition, which we can see in primarily in Texas, especially in Idaho, to where, how sick do you need to be? How much in harm's way do you need to be before you can actually get access to an abortion or to some kind of termination of pregnancy?
Okay, but legislation can also offer clarity, right?
It doesn't.
Yeah, it can offer clarity.
It doesn't.
It can't, or it does not? Descriptive
it can't.
or prescriptive?
I don't see any
Then why have
effective
laws?
legislation.
Why do we have laws against murder?
I think there can be instances or certain contexts where it can be specific. If you want me to relate that to abortion, like specifically if we look at Texas has regulations regarding exceptions for life of the mother as well as health of the mother. But this has created complications because the Texas legislature won't give specifics or even conditions, which would qualify under the exception. They were sued and asked to do so, and the Supreme Court said they didn't have to.
Yeah, right. So clarity is your issue, but you agree with me?
It's not clarity, no. Because again, I just think pregnancy is so nuanced and it's so complex that legislation cannot effectively do it. If we want to talk about
murder is also vastly complex, extremely nuanced. The justifications vary from literally municipality to municipality.
Sure.
So
but again, I think the ultimate authority and autonomy is with someone who is a medical professional and understands the health history of their patient, as well as the own patient's testimony of what's happening.
Well, it's not going to be up to them. It's going to be up to the person actually having the abortion, right?
What do you mean? Well,
it's not up to the medical. The medical professional is not making a prescription. They're just executing the procedure. In some capacities, they are making prescriptions in terms of this is what these are where your vitals at. This is what this can lead to. These are the outcomes that they want to prevent. Those are descriptors.
This is what we're going to do.
Those are descriptive, not prescriptive.
Okay. In terms of what you ought to do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. What's your question?
So what you ought to do is going to be determined by the autonomy of the mother.
Not necessarily.
Then what's it going to be determined by?
I would say the pragmatics of the situation.
So who gets to make that decision?
I think it can be a cohesive discussion, but the doctor would have some authority, just like the doctor has authority in terms of, I go in and I want my leg amputated. There's going to be specific context to where the doctor's not going to do it. I
don't disagree with that in a matter prescribed by law. But you're saying you don't want...
I don't think that is prescribed by law.
Yeah, but it is. You can't just cut off a person's foot because they want you to. That would be against the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, that Hippocratic Oath and law are two different things.
No, that is law. If you make an oath, that is law. And it is legally binding. Yes, it is.
No, are we talking about civil law or are we talking about legislative?
Law. Yeah, it's civil law.
Civil law.
And by the way, there are actually specificities too within the medical market of doctor discretion, not being they can't, for instance, say, no, we're not going to treat you for the symptoms that you're complaining about. They still have to treat you. Right. And I'm sure that
but they can exclude some aspects of treatment.
Sure. I'm not even disputing that. But in this case, you're asking for no legislation.
No legislation, no state legislation, no federal legislation.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So if you're saying no federal legislation, no state legislation, then the doctor you can obviously have a doctor who's just like, I'll just do whatever the person's asking me to do.
Well, that's not happening.
Well, yeah, because it's legislated.
It's not. I gave you the example.
Yeah, I'm curious about this. Can you pull it up, Ryan?
I gave you the example
Does Colorado have any abortion law whatsoever? Can you pull that up for me?
Yeah, Blake, can you find us
Canada as well? I'm pretty sure Washington too.
No abortion law?
No abortion law. And they actually had a lower abortion rate up until, I want to say, 2023.
So it says here, Colorado, at least from the AI, one of the most abortion-friendly states in the United States. It's legal in Colorado, all stages of pregnancy.
Constitutional protection. In 2022, Colorado voters approved Prop 79, enshrined the right to abortion in the state constitution, so there is legislation on abortion. That's incorrect.
So there's definitely legislation in Colorado. What is there in Canada?
I mean, constitutional protections.
Yeah, that would definitely be the law of the land would be the Constitution.
Maybe I can be more specific then in terms of legislation against abortion. Because we did just read.
So you want
correct?
legislation for abortion?
One second. We did just read that the first line was abortion is legal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes.
But it's legal because it's enshrined in the law.
Because it's constitutionally protected.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be against legislative in terms of like making laws against it. I'm sorry if I wasn't specific on that.
Okay, so it's just laws against it.
Correct.
Okay, so what if the termination of the or if the doctor was willing to perform the abortion in such a way where it terminated the fetus, even at 8 months?
Okay.
Would you be for a law against that?
No.
No. Would that be murder?
Yes.
But no punishment?
Correct.
How is that morally consistent? That's like the most monstrous thing I've ever heard.
So I think this is where like a utilitarian position would come into, is that when we look at abortion post 21 weeks, even in states that have all legal protections towards abortion, it's 1% of abortions. And then when we look at that 1% even further, it's prior to 28 weeks. So post 28 weeks, I think a lot of pro-lifers just kind of make like up these ideas that people want to come in and just have lethal terminations for no reason.
This is all descriptive. You're just talking.
Right,
yeah.
If I can finish.
Yeah, but this is descriptive. I'm asking about prescriptive.
Right. So I'm getting there.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that this is a non-existent, at worst, and rare event at best. And in terms of the deaths of fetuses within this criteria, that is going to be less than the deaths of pregnant people who are denied abortions who are medically necessary. And so which one would I rather have? I would rather have more people live, which would be the pregnant people.